Hi, my name is Cara Greystock and this is my painting project. The first thing that I did was a drawing, as I thought that could then take me into paint later on in my work. I feel that to improve it I would definitely make the tongue more realistic, as it's very blocked off at the moment. After that I did lots of primary research of photos of my friends so that I had images to work from in the future with interesting angles and facial expressions. Once I moved on from that, I did some times drawings and some grid drawings. I really enjoyed the grid drawings as I felt that everything was in proportion and it looked really tidy. I loved doing the distorted grid as I felt that I looked like a cartoon and it was honestly just interesting to me. I then moved on to Grizel and underpainting, and I felt this didn't work as good as I had hoped, as I didn't really get the details I was wanting to and it doesn't look like the image as much in my eyes. After that I took some more images and moved on to some experimental drawings. With this I did continuous line, timed drawings and blind contour. I was really interested in the time drawings as I feel that they all came out very different but very unique as well. Then I moved on to looking at 3 different artists. My favourite was definitely Julian Opie, as I feel that I was able to capture his style perfectly in my opinion. I would definitely look at this further on in my book. After that, I compared the work of Pablo Picasso and Francis Bacon. I feel that Francis Bacon is a lot like Pablo Picasso, however, he's a lot more graphic in his work, so at times it was quite disturbing to look at his images due to the reasoning behind them. Moving on, I looked at some techniques of painting like Grizel and underpainting. I wasn't really too interested in these as I didn't feel that they were my type of style, however I would definitely look at them further if it was to improve my work. I then looked into Taishan Schierenberg and Julian Opie. Again, I think I'd be best at Julian Opie, however Taishan Schierenberg really interested me as I really want to look at working in his style and learning how he works. After that I did a self-portrait and I took it into paint, however I don't think I got the skin colour quite right and it just wasn't really standing out to me. I then moved on to looking at impasto and alla prima. I was quite interested in alla prima as it was really realistic and I feel that it just stood out to me when I looked at it, as each painting was very different in the style it was done. Moving on from that, I did a step-by-step of how I did my underpainting. I wasn't too pleased with how this came out as it didn't look like the photo too much and I feel that I overworked it massively. I enjoyed doing the 7-day drawing challenge as I feel that they were all quite unique in the way they looked and I'd definitely take these further into paint. That was in the style of Tom Mosser and he's quite a good painter as he painted every single day a different self-portrait for a year and I find that really interesting. One of my favourite things to look at were the watercolour practice, as I feel that I was able to capture the skin tone very perfectly, in my opinion, and I feel that this would have worked as a final piece if I had taken it any further. I then did 3 quick time drawings, and I wasn't interested in these at all, as none of them worked, and they just didn't intrigue me at all when I was doing them. After that, I was looking at textures, and I feel that these worked really well, especially the puzzle pieces, as that could be put into portraits and taken further if I wanted them to. I practiced some watercolour, and again, I just don't think it came out very well. Then I moved on to the 3 artists I wanted to study, like Antoine Stevens, Taishan Schierenberg and Stan Miller. I was quite interested in Taishan Schierenberg and Antoine Stevens as they were both the style that I was hoping to progress in my work. I did a practice of Stan Miller and I don't think it came out like the photo. I feel like it's way too cartoon and it just didn't portray the image at all. I then moved on to looking at Antoine Stevens. I really loved doing his work as I found it really fun to do and abstract, and that's definitely the style I was hoping to move on to in my final piece. After that I did a few more practices and decided on a model I wanted to use. However, I made a mistake in one of them and it ended up looking like a Tom Mosser piece. I was really pleased with how my drawings came out of my model and how my initial painting came out of my model, as I feel that it's really detailed and it works really nicely. Then I tried to do a side profile, but I found that this image just didn't work as a painting and I knew that it wouldn't, but it would be good to practice on my profiles. I then decided on focusing in on one aspect of the three faces that Antoine Stephen does, and that was Hear, See, Speak No Evil. I found them really interesting, which is why I took them into my final piece. I laid it out as 3 different faces, which I would then join together. I started off with this, and this was definitely my favourite one out of all of them. However, I definitely do need to brighten it up. This is initially how my final piece turned out. However, I found that I needed to add more light areas and more tone in the third face, as it just didn't look like it linked with the rest. I then did some description on why I chose to do Hear, See, Speak No Evil, as I feel that it just worked really nicely with how Antoine Stephen works, because he does 3 faces usually with different facial expressions. So I felt that it was really intriguing to do as a final piece. Then I have my 3 zoomed in photos. I decided to grid them on the photo, however not on my canvas, because I feel that when I was painting over it, I could then see where each thing would be in proportion to, and it honestly just made it easier for me to work. Then I moved on to my actual final piece. As you can see, I've lightened up the eyes, so it now all links together and it's all very much a lot brighter, really, in my opinion. My final piece discussion is that I wish I'd taken watercolour further through my work, as I feel that that could have been a good aspect to include and incorporate in my work. However, the method I used was initially Alla Primer. However, I did a stylised version of it, as that's what appealed to the artist much more. And then on my last page, I did the health and safety tips of painting and basically how it can affect you. Overall, this is my final piece. I'm really pleased with how it came out. However, I think it would have worked even better if I'd done it on a much larger scale, as that may have made it more interesting to look at instead of an A3 size photo.